Welcome to our comprehensive data engineering podcast. Today we're breaking down the entire data pipeline with a focus on clinical trials applications. Let's start with understanding data sources and collection. James, what types of data sources do data engineers work with in healthcare?
Thanks. In clinical trials, we deal with incredibly diverse data sources. These include structured data from electronic health records and clinical trial management systems, semi-structured data like lab results, and unstructured data from physician notes or patient-reported outcomes.
How do these sources differ from a technical perspective?
Each source presents unique challenges. RDBMS sources like PostgreSQL databases might contain patient demographic data in well-structured tables. Stream data could come from medical devices sending real-time patient monitoring data via AWS Kinesis or Kafka. Log data might capture system access for regulatory compliance.
What AWS services are particularly relevant for collecting clinical trial data?
For clinical trials, AWS HealthLake is purpose-built for healthcare data, supporting FR standards. Amazon S3 provides the foundation for raw data storage, creating our data lake. AWS Transfer Family ensures secure file transfers, critical for protected health information. For streaming data from medical devices, Amazon Kinesis is invaluable.
What's the most important principle when collecting this data?
The golden rule is preservation of source data integrity. In clinical trials, this is both a regulatory requirement and scientific necessity. We extract data without modification, maintaining the original format and complete audit trail. Think of yourself as a data archaeologist preserving artifacts exactly as you found them.
Now let's discuss data quality and reconciliation, particularly critical in clinical trials. Why is this step so important?
Data quality in clinical trials is literally a matter of life and death. Bad data can lead to incorrect conclusions about drug safety and efficacy. Beyond scientific integrity, regulatory bodies like the FDA require comprehensive data quality processes that are well documented and consistently applied.
What specific quality checks should be implemented for clinical trial data?
We implement multiple layers of checks. Completeness verification ensures all patient data points are collected across all scheduled visits. Reconciliation confirms source data matches what appears in our systems. Validation applies medical and logical rules, for example, flagging physiologically impossible values like a body temperature of 150 degrees F.
Which tools are most effective for implementing data quality frameworks in clinical trials?
For enterprise implementations, Informatica Data Quality provides comprehensive validation capabilities with pre-built rules for healthcare. For AWS-centric architectures, AWS Glue Data Quality allows defining and enforcing quality rules as part of ETL pipelines. For organizations with data science capabilities, custom PySpark frameworks offer ultimate flexibility, allowing implementation of complex trial-specific validation logic.
Can you give an example of reconciliation in action?
Imagine a clinical trial tracking patient blood pressure measurements. Reconciliation would verify that if 500 measurements were taken according to the source system, exactly 500 appear in our data warehouse. We'd also verify aggregate values match the average systolic pressure should be identical in both systems. Any discrepancy triggers investigation before data moves downstream.
Let's discuss how data moves through processing layers in a clinical trials environment. Can you walk us through the key layers?
In clinical trials, we typically work with 4 distinct processing layers. The raw layer preserves and modified source data. The refined layer standardizes and cleanses data. The integration layer connects data across sources. Finally, the presentation layer prepares data for specific analyses and visualizations.
What happens in the refined layer specifically?
The refined layer is where we standardize inconsistent data. For example, we might convert temperature readings to a single unit converting Fahrenheit to Celsius. We'd create derived fields, like calculating BMI from height and weight. We'd also optimize storage formats, typically converting data to Parquet or Delta Lake for performance. This is where data gets usable, but still maintains granularity.
How does the integration layer work with clinical trial data?
Integration is critical in clinical trials where data comes from multiple systems. We might link patient data from electronic health records with lab results, imaging findings, and patient-reported outcomes. This creates a 360-degree view of each participant. For example, we could join adverse event reports with medication administration data to investigate potential correlations. This unified view enables comprehensive analysis.
What ETL tools are best suited for these processing layers in clinical trials?
Each tool has specific strengths. Informatica Power Center excels in enterprise environments with complex transformations and robust governance. Apache NiFi is particularly good at handling diverse data formats and creating visual data flows with strong provenance tracking. PySpark is a match for large-scale data processing with the flexibility of Python. AWS Glue provides serverless ETL with tight integration to other AWS services. The best approach often combines tools, perhaps using NiFi for ingestion, PySpark for transformation, and AWS Glue for orchestration.
Data governance is particularly crucial in clinical trials due to regulatory requirements. How should data engineers approach governance in this context?
Data governance in clinical trials has both regulatory and ethical dimensions. We need to ensure patient privacy through robust identification, maintain complete audit trails of all data transformations, enforce role-based access control, and establish clear data lineage. The FDA 21 CFR Part 11 regulations specifically require validated systems with audit trails for electronic records, which directly impacts how we design our pipelines.
What AWS services support governance for clinical trial data?
AWS provides several services critical for governance. AWS Lake Formation enables fine-grained access control at the database, table, column, and row levels. AWS CloudTrail captures all API calls essential for audit requirements. Amazon Massey can automatically identify and protect sensitive data. AWS KMS allows encryption of protected health information. Together, these services help meet HIPAA, GDPR, and other regulatory requirements specific to clinical data.
How should pipeline management be handled for clinical trial data processing?
Pipeline management for clinical trials requires exceptional reliability and transparency. Apache Airflow excels here, allowing us to define pipelines as code with robust error handling. AWS Step Functions works well for serverless orchestration with visual workflow tracking. Crucially, we need comprehensive monitoring and alerting to detect failures before they impact trial operations. Self-healing pipelines that can automatically retry on failure and clear notification protocols are essential.
What about data lineage tracking? Why is it particularly important for clinical trials?
Data lineage is non-negotiable in clinical trials. When the FDA audits a submission, they'll want to trace every data point back to its source. We need to document every transformation, who performed it, when, and why. Tools like Apache Atlas provide comprehensive lineage tracking. Some organizations implement this at the metadata level and within actual data processing code, creating dual lineage tracking for critical data. This allows reconstructing exactly how any analysis result was derived from raw data.
Let's dive into the essential technical skills needed for data engineering in clinical trials. What programming skills are most important?
Python is absolutely fundamental. It's the lingua franca for data engineering, particularly through PySpark for big data processing. SQL proficiency is non-negotiable. You'll use it constantly for data extraction and analysis. For clinical trials specifically, some familiarity with R is helpful as it's widely used for statistical analysis by biostatisticians, so understanding R data formats aids collaboration.
Which databases are most relevant for clinical trial data?
You need familiarity with both SQL and NoSQL databases. On the SQL side, PostgreSQL is dominant due to its robustness and extensions like PostGIS for location data. AWS Aurora provides PostgreSQL compatibility with cloud benefits. For NoSQL, DynamoDB works well for high-throughput needs like device data, while MongoDB excels for semi-structured data like clinical notes. Also important is Amazon Neptune for graph relationships, valuable for mapping complex patient journeys across treatments.
How should data engineers approach AWS services for clinical trials?
Beyond the basics like S3 and EC2, clinical trial data engineers should focus on Health Lake for FO-compliant storage, Amazon MR for managed Airflow workflows, Glue for ETL, and QuickSight for visualizations. Security services are crucial. Understand KMS for encryption, IAM for access control, and Shield for DDoS protection. Finally, AWS HIPAA eligibility is essential knowledge, including which services are covered under AWS BA.
What ETL skills are most valuable in this field?
PySpark is the cornerstone ETL skill, offering the perfect combination of Python flexibility and distributed processing power. Informatica Power Center remains prevalent in enterprise farm environments with established processes. Apache NiFi is valuable for its visual interface and strong data provenance tracking, which aligns with clinical trial audit requirements. For AWS-centric organizations, proficiency with AWS Glue, especially using its PySpark runtime, provides seamless integration with other AWS services.
In our final section, let's examine industry trends and career paths in data engineering for clinical trials. What major trends are shaping this field?
4 major trends are transforming clinical trial data engineering. First, decentralized clinical trials are generating diverse data from patient homes via devices and apps. Second, real-world evidence is being integrated with traditional trial data, requiring new integration approaches. Third, AI and ML are being applied throughout the trial lifecycle, from protocol design to adverse event detection. Fourth, regulatory frameworks are evolving to address these new data sources while maintaining patient protection.
How are data engineering roles evolving in clinical research organizations?
The boundaries between data engineering and data science are increasingly blurring in clinical research. Organizations now seek professionals with broader skill sets who understand both domains. Data engineers are expected to have some understanding of biostatistics and clinical data standards like CDISC. Similarly, data scientists need to understand data engineering principles to ensure they're working with reliable data pipelines. This convergence creates opportunities for full-stack data professionals who can bridge traditional silos.
What specialized data engineering roles are emerging in clinical trials?
Several specialized roles are emerging. Clinical data lake architects focus specifically on designing secure, compliant data repositories for trial data. Real-world data integration engineers specialize in combining trial data with electronic health records and claims data. Clinical ML ops engineers build platforms for deploying machine learning models within regulated environments. Data governance specialists ensure trial data meets regulatory requirements across global regions. These specialized roles typically develop after gaining broad experience in clinical data engineering.
How should someone interested in clinical trial data engineering approach the career path?
Start by building a strong foundation in core data engineering, Python, SQL, and cloud services like AWS. Then gain experience with healthcare data formats, particularly FHIR and CDISC standards. Understanding regulatory requirements like HIPAA and 21 CFR Part 11 is crucial. Look for opportunities in pharmaceutical companies, contract research organizations, CRO, or health tech startups. Consider certifications like AWS Certified Data Engineer, but also healthcare-specific credentials like CDISC certifications. Throughout your career, focus on building end-to-end pipeline knowledge rather than just specific tools, as architectural principles remain consistent even as technologies evolve.